Diakite for the win. It goes! And now it's getting away. He's sacked in the end zone. Mandy Alonso comes away with it. Knocks it away. Rebound into the hands of Hunter. And Virginia with the all-time turnaround title.
Good evening. Welcome on into another edition of the Cavalier Connection podcast. I'm your host, Jack Lowe, joined as always by my dad, Jeff Lowe, and the returning Jay Ballard. Tonight, we'll have our immediate reactions to the big wins over Clemson and Miami, preview the FSU game on Saturday with a special guest from the Plant the Spear podcast. Also, guys, I forgot to mention it last week, so how do y'all like that little intro that just played for all the viewers there? You like it? You like it?
Oh man,
I did.
Well, first, let me say the lesser Jay is back. The better Jay is not here tonight, and I'm really sorry I missed that interview because I loved it and it made me feel like y'all don't need me anymore. But no, he was such a great guest. I really enjoyed that. And I'm ready to run through a brick wall after the intro.
Yeah, I know. That's what.
Put out there,
once I finalized it and I watched it through without any making any more edits, it made me all fired up, ready to watch a UVA football game or something. That was.
Oh yeah.
I was excited.
And Jack wasn't there for that Florida State game.
I was not, but I tell you what, and I like the way I cut it. It was perfect. It just all fit in perfect, I think, with the music and everything. So hope you guys enjoy that intro. Hopefully we don't get copyright strike or anything. We don't worry about that. They don't know who we are. We're not big enough. How are you tonight, Dad? Didn't really get.
I'm doing good. We enjoyed the interview last week. Glad to have the lesser Jay back. Note Jay Wolford was basketball and a good Monday night of basketball, so we're ready to get at it.
Yes, indeed we are. So with two big wins ever since our last recorded podcast. First one came against Clemson on Saturday, 66-65, and an absolute dominant victory last night, or when you're hearing this, Monday night, against Miami, the final score being 60-38. Old school Tony Bennett kind of game, some outstanding defense is my biggest thing. Jake Groves is making some threes, which is nice to see. Just a great team effort, I'd say, and I feel like I say that every time they win. But Jay, you want to give your first thoughts?
Yeah, really enjoyed watching that Miami game last night. It didn't start great. If you remember, it was like 4 minutes in before we scored, close to 4 minutes before we scored, and I thought, my gosh, we've come out flat. We're potentially not going to play well, and we cannot afford to lose this game. But to their credit, they really they just kept playing hard. Even the shots didn't go all that well. In the first half we scored 29, and it wasn't like we shot the lights out or anything like that. But it was just a gradual pull away because the defense was just so suffocating. And they missed some looks. Tony even talked about that. I love it when ESPN just plays an ad.
I had to mute that. I just had to mute that one because of that.
Yeah, it's on the computer. I got
right.
To mute my computer. But anyway, yeah. So Tony even talked about they really yes, they missed some shots, but the guys were just playing solid, cutting off the driving lanes, forcing shots. They were getting out on the shooters, and our guys offensively did enough. They did enough to build the lead up. Beekman, I think I'm looking at the Clemson box score because, let's see, Beekman had 16 last night, just solid as always. IMAC with 9, Dunn had 8. And Groves came in, and he's just been shooting the lights out. I think I heard, and I can't imagine this is actually correct, but I heard someone say he had made 15 of his last 17 3-point attempts.
I'd believe it. I'd believe it. He's been.
I mean, that's
It's probably close
outrageous.
to it.
It's close to it, if not. Yeah. Also,
Um,
quick note: how about all of our favorite player, Tane Murray? How about that
yeah,
kid?
yeah, Tane. Honestly, I wish Tane would move into the starting lineup. I feel like Rhodey is just a
Mm,
token start at this
man,
point.
if you had said
I
if one of us had said that a couple months ago, you would be losing your mind over it.
Yes, and you know,
I mean, to be fair,
again,
the same thing with Jordan Miner. A few months ago, we thought he didn't deserve any minutes, if anything. So
well, I don't know. Me and Jeff kept saying, you got to feel like eventually he's going to have some games, but it's turned out he's had quite a season. When you
yeah,
look at, after by the time the season's over, he'll have probably been starting in about what 2/3 by the time the year's
yeah,
over.
something like that.
So it's taken him a little while, and when we had a Keel on, he talked about, and I did notice last night when he hedged high, he was a little late on the crash back, and so I could see what Akil was kind of talking about when he mentioned that. But
I just don't think
real,
he's quite athletic enough to, as some of the other guys who played that role as well,
Yeah,
as far as
yeah,
getting back after hedging.
like
And that's
yeah.
Diakite.
just
Yeah.
So I got to watch the Clemson game on tape, already knowing that we won. So that was a lot more fun than watching it not knowing, because even though I knew we won, man, when they're coming up the court down one after Dante Harris missed that free throw, I'm thinking, at least I know we won. But man, I'd have been scared to death if
and
it was on.
I lost the year because I didn't know what was going to happen when I watched it.
That was something, and when IMAC hit that big three in the AM1, normally we ice those games away, but it was like we just couldn't bury them, and then we just we didn't make free throws, as has been a problem. So they'll bite us eventually. We're going to be in a close game where those free throws are going to make us they're going to cost us a victory at some point. But real proud of this team, the way they're playing firmly in the tournament right now, not on the bubble. I'd say they're on the 10 line, I think. And I'd say if they keep winning, even if you split with Duke and Carolina, you're probably looking at in that 6-5, 6-7 range.
So one of the things from the Clemson game, I tweeted, it was a close game. I don't remember the situation now, maybe a 4-point game or so. And I tweeted, I said something in there. We've got nothing out of Ryan Dunn all game. That's all I said. There's just nothing out of Dunn. And I'm telling you, as soon as I sent that tweet, the very next play was that crazy. That save he made. Jay, did you see that save?
I did see that. It was
That save
unbelievable.
he made diving out of bounds, which was a double save because he saved it to Groves, I believe it was, who saved it to
Right.
McNeely or somebody else. I was like, holy cow, it's such an athletic play. And then what ended up being the game winner was his follow-up on that miss by, I don't recall who
It was a
shot.
tip in.
The tip in. I mean, he was just huge when it counted. And then in the game against Miami, he got going kind of early. I think he finished with 8 or 9. What did he finish with? 8 points, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 8 rebounds. This is a typical Ryan Dunn kind of game. And you get him into an NBA flow of an offense, up and down pace, that he might benefit from something like that.
Yeah.
But Beekman was solid as usual. Groves has that confidence now where he's driving to the basket and he's hitting some clutch shots. Hitting a 8-foot jumper or something like that.
Hit the step back three for his first shot of the night last night.
And you can get
it
helps him to get some offense from somebody else out there on the floor. And then Buchanan has played much better offensively as well. Since the roles have all been adjusted a little bit, with it all falls back down. The common denominator is Minor. Yeah. Since Minor came in, this has opened everything up. And now Groves doesn't have to worry about playing as the big man inside. Groves is he's confident now shooting that outside shot. And Buchanan's coming off the bench. He's not starting. And I mean, Buchanan's got a little touch around that rim now. He's finding his shot a little bit too. So he had 6 points last night, but a couple of those nice little 8-10 foot jumpers. So I like what we've seen out of him. When Saturday in that game, the problem is, of course, we just talked about it's the foul shooting. It's going to come back to bite us at some point. Right there at the end of the game, when Dante Harris couldn't get the ball in, had to take our last timeout, and then McNeely's getting the ball in. I'm like, oh gosh. And when it went to Harris, I mean, God love him, but I knew he's a 50-some% foul shooter right now for the season. He ain't shot but like 17 or so. You knew that 1-and-1 wasn't going in. Jack,
Right.
Were you home? Were you home at that point, Jack?
Are you talking about for wait?
At the end of the game on Clemson?
No, I didn't get to see any of it. Remember?
So
I listened to some of it on the
I
radio.
don't know who
Though.
I was talking to. Maybe I was probably talking to myself. I just said, well, this. There's no way he's making this foul shot, and he missed it. And here
I think
they
you put it
come.
on Twitter because I remember seeing it.
No, I didn't put that on Twitter.
No, you put something on Twitter
put
about I'm not feeling confident.
That's what I said, but I didn't say no way he's making it on Twitter.
Oh no.
I wouldn't do that to him, but I did. That's what I was saying out loud. Is that he's not making the foul shot. There's no way. But I had put on Twitter. I gave the soft version. I'm not feeling too confident. Please, Harris, hit these foul shots. He missed it, and here they come. I'm like, oh God! Like a game that was settled. We foul a 3-point shooter. That's just a bad foul.
Yep.
I mean, Clemson had not shot the ball well, and gosh, if he makes it, he makes it. But man, that's a tough foul. And then of course they're gonna make all 3 foul shots. But I do want to point out one last thing on the Clemson game. What did Hall finished with 19 points, but he was 4 for 16 from the floor.
Yeah, Minor did a great job.
Of his 19 points, 10 were foul shots.
And most of them were in the second half.
And most were in the second half. He had like 4 at halftime. Minor did an outstanding job on it. And when Jack and I on Friday night talk or Saturday morning when we put it out, I said the biggest thing is I was talking about Hall. I was like, Minor just bumping him, making him work all game long. And I felt like that was going to be, potentially the difference in the game. And that's exactly what he did. And, I mean, Hall scored 19. He's averaging, I think, 19 or 20 a game. But that's 10 foul shots to get there. 4 of 16? Are you kidding me? That's an outstanding performance.
You know what I really liked about that Miami? Did you see the post-game press conference for Jim Larinaga?
Oh, my God. And did you see the comparison about Tony Bennett with the 16 seed?
Yeah.
It's so true, though. And that's just who Bennett is. And
well, it's
so
crazy.
For those that didn't see it, Larinaga sat down at the table and
it wasn't the first thing he pulled that night, by the way.
Well, I think it was somebody said, I think he said, any questions? And then somebody said something, and he said, Virginia played really good.
Outplayed
and we
us.
played really bad. Thanks for your attention.
Time or
thanks for
something.
Something.
Yeah.
And then just got up and walked off. 30 seconds. It was literally 30 seconds.
Yeah. And he had the 2 incidents during the game.
Yeah,
where
he took the time out and didn't even go in the huddle.
Yeah.
If that doesn't show that you don't have confidence in your team, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if it was about confidence or I think he's realized, and there was the quote they had from him where their shoot around wasn't even good.
I was going to mention that.
He knew what was coming.
The amount of mistakes that were going on in the shoot around, I forget what the quote was, but I was like, and then they came out, and there was mistake after mistake after mistake, and you can't do that against Virginia. And we're always
went down, and that was it.
Oh yeah.
Like, once we got up on them, they weren't coming back.
Yeah.
And they always like to say they like to compare Virginia to that python. We slowly wrap around them, and we just squeeze the life out of teams, and that's what we did in Miami.
But here's the other common thing you hear, and you heard it last night. You hear it every time it happens. well, this 6-point lead is really like 20 when
Yeah.
you're playing Virginia.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is you would think that's true. But if we got a 6-point lead, I'm not comfortable. I
No, not
consider
at
it like
all.
I feel like it's a 3-point lead.
Yeah.
I feel the complete opposite. I
Yeah.
don't care if we're up 20. Put the pedal to the metal because I'm
Right.
nervous.
Because
might
you
not
know that we will go through a 4-minute stretch
Yes.
where we don't hit a field goal.
where we don't
Mhm.
score. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I was. They always say that, and it always. I don't ever feel the same.
No.
And then
Yeah.
of course they got bacon for the fans last night as well.
Oh
So
yeah,
we
that
had
was cool. That was
2 missed foul
that was the
shots.
first time this year. So it only happened once
it the
last
first
year.
time?
Yeah.
Oh.
So last year, it happened once, and you know when it happened? Senior night. It happened on the last game of the year. So
I've still got
and I think they got it
PTSD
in
from
the
that Elite Eight
late in the second
Syracuse
half,
game
too.
where we were up 9
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
and in like 6 seconds we were up 3 because they hit a 3, they got a steal, they hit a 3. It was 9. It's like you feel good. Then all of a sudden it's 3, and you're like, what just happened?
Well, I thought you were talking about the Elite Eight.
That's what I'm talking about. When we
Oh,
played
that's the
Syracuse.
one where we were up 9 with. We had a big
Well, we were
lead.
up 15 with like 9 minutes to go, but
We were getting free layups and we just couldn't finish them. Like we were beating the press and
yeah.
dang, that one hurts.
But that one still stings me to this day.
Yeah, me too. We should have been in the Final Four. That should have been the first Final Four under Bennett. Was that season?
But going back on Miami's coach, with all the stuff that happened, doesn't it make y'all just thankful for Tony Bennett?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm always thankful for Tony Bennett.
Absolutely.
Even when I've had earlier in the year, I said we can't get too high, can't get too low, and Tony Bennett figures things out. There was a stretch this year. I was like, man, what is Tony Bennett doing? I just didn't see the fire, and I was just wrong. I was just wrong. Like he's still always working, and he's gonna figure it out. Yep. The guy, you see him looking out with his eyes scrunched up a little bit. I feel like his mind's just processing. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And he figures things out every single year. And I said it earlier in the year, and I felt like I was going to be wrong, but I should have just stuck to my guns. I said by the end of this thing, he's going to have them right up there in contention, in the top 2 spots in ACC because that's where we are every year.
Yeah.
Yep.
But shame on me. And you need to cut that clip right there so that next year, if something like this starts going down,
just to remind you,
play the clip, and remind me.
In Tony, we trust.
In Tony, we trust. That's right.
Well, do we want to go ahead and show the people our little preview there?
Yeah.
We had a great time talking with Jesse Coger out of Plant the Spear, the big FSU fan. He runs their podcast over there. They do a fantastic job, so it was an honor and a pleasure to have him on. So here it is. At this time, we'd like to welcome in Jesse Coger from the Fear the Spear podcast to give us an inside look of what we can expect on Saturday. Jesse, it's great to have you on. How are you tonight?
Awesome, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. I don't know how much you would expect from us on Saturday, but it's at least we're at home, so hopefully this little kind of scare win against Boston College will get some life going because after last week, I think everybody's ready to sell their stock on this basketball team.
Yeah. So coming into tonight, FSU is 12-9 overall. Excuse me, that's 13-9. Yes, 13-9 overall after that Boston College win that just happened a few minutes ago. 7-4 in the ACC. So not looking like a tournament team right now. Some bad losses to Lipscomb, South Florida, and Georgia. However, there are nice wins over Wake Forest, Virginia Tech. Thanks for that one. That's a dislike for us. And Syracuse. So give us your perspective so far on the season.
And I will also say I saw y'all beat Miami, so tip of the cap to you guys as well.
We're doing each other a favor. Yep.
I really think after last year, Florida State had kind of a historically bad year last year under Coach Hamilton. And when you stretch all the way back to 2020, I think what's really disappointing was they probably had their best season ever under Ham. And everything, of course, got canceled, and so they never got a chance. That was what we felt like was his chance to win one. And then it kind of fell off the tracks a little bit. So this year is actually a pretty good rebound year, but so far this particular season, now they did lose three of their top pieces to the portal, Matthew Cleveland at Miami, and a couple of other guys, but really the narrative of this season has to be inconsistency. I mean, you talk about a team that had North Carolina on the ropes. I mean, they took a lead into halftime and they find ways to lose. And then they go lose to Louisville. I mean, almost just an unexplainable loss. So you can watch this team at times and they got some talent and you can see where they could be a really good team. But then they just consistently find ways to lose. And, to be honest, as much as we love the guy, because he's been there a long time, there's a big clamoring in the fan base that this is probably going to be the retirement year for Leonard Hamilton, because I think it's just something needs to change. We're in need of a change, and so I think now's a lot of change going on at Florida State. But yeah, this year's just been so inconsistent by this team. They're not really living up to the talent that they have.
Yeah. So what would
we
you
were
say?
going to ask you about that too.
Go ahead. Yeah, we were going to ask.
We were going to ask you about
Hamilton.
the thought from you guys as far as Leonard Hamilton, if you thought this might be it for him, or.
I do. I think this is going to be, when you look back to the AD that we have now. Now, Florida State, for those who don't know, our old athletic director kind of put them in a financial pinch. We've gotten past that now, and the new AD, God rest his soul, Mike Martin. Most of you probably know he just recently passed, but this AD fired his son, and so he's willing to make some changes. And so it's as much as we appreciate what Ham has done, because Florida State's just kind of been consistently okay at basketball, but to get to that next level where they want to be, I just feel like it's gotten stale. It's gotten stale in recruiting. It's gotten stale he's not really adapting to the style of play that they need to do now. And it's just the talent that they have has not always equaled the results on the court. And so I think it's either going to be this year or next year at the most. I think it was just they didn't want to send him out on that year last year. So I think this year I don't see them making the tournament after losing to Louisville. But, I think this is probably going to be it. And that is a perfect example of why it probably will be it. When you look at you have North Carolina on the ropes, and then you just go lose to Louisville, and then you hang on against Boston College. It's if you want to be good, a change is probably going to have to be made. I will say they lost some CY, one of their assistant coaches. I think he's at Cleveland State now. They lost a couple of coaches, and since then it's fallen off a little bit. But, I think this is going to be it for him.
So when I think about the Leonard Hamilton teams in the past that were really good, like I say, he's been there forever. They're big, strong, long, and athletic. Maybe not always the best shooting teams, but a lot of streaking to the basket, getting to the rim. Is that what this year's team is like, or are they a different mold?
They have a lot of length this year, and the depth. I think the depth is not as good as it has been in the past. Now, I think you do have a couple of really good bench players. Primo Spears is a guy that I absolutely love. I think he probably should be a starter. But I think really, they have Baba Miller in the middle. He's 6'11". He's tall, but he's really, really lanky. So, he can get up, but he's not really a true, in essence, big man in the middle. And then, they're so inconsistent with what they're good at from week to week. I mean, I think it was North Carolina. They shot 15% from the free throw. I mean, it was from the free throw line. It was just awful. Now, they killed the 3 points in that game, but then I think it was Louisville. You go back and they couldn't shoot threes for nothing. And Clemson, that was one of the reasons they lost. So it's inconsistent. They're good from the 2-point range, but they're not. They're struggling from beyond the arc. They're very inconsistent. They were 50% on free throws tonight, so they a little better than before, but they're still just struggling. I think really one of the things that this team lacks, and this was actually a big conversation after the Louisville loss, was they just don't have leadership on this team. They have a lot of quiet guys, and if you can say that players embody their coach, I love Leonard Hamilton for the guy that he is. He's a great human being. He's not a fiery coach like you would imagine with some guys. And I think the team has embodied that personality, and they just have a bunch of quiet guys that just go play, but you don't really have a true leader. But they have length, they have depth, and he kind of runs that old system where you get in foul trouble, 2 fouls and you're out. That's the way they do it, but they love to come off the bench. But, I just don't think the bench outside of Primo Spears is as strong this year. And so I think that's kind of where they're struggling. Sometimes you're like, just let the guy be in foul trouble. I mean, you got to get your best guys on the field because one of the problems with Florida State this year too is when they get in a hole, it seems like they fold up and they don't really battle back. So I think that's one of the differences this year is just not having that leader to keep everything together when the wheels start to fall off.
Yeah.
So you would say they're kind of packing in the season now. You feel like they don't have that leader that's.
Yeah, it's just that because they actually that was asked in a press conference last week after the Louisville loss, like who is what's with the leadership on this team, and they said that even Ham said we don't really have the leadership that we need, and so I mean you'll see guys go out and of course play hard, but I think now that you've seen where they're probably out of the tournament, I do kind of question how hard they're going to go unless it's a big game or a home game or something like that. But that it's definitely hurt this team because you can see again like the North Carolina game where in the second half, you just let that lead erode. And it seemed like everybody, once their backs got against the wall, they're like, okay, now what do we do? Instead of, what did you do in the first half to get here? You played that junkyard dog kind of defense and you got up in their face and then it just seems like they wilted away in the second half and they don't have that guy to kind of kick them in the butt to get them going again. And so, yeah, it's going to be questionable how they do going forward with a couple of really bad losses and now probably not going to be in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Is there any particular player that UVA needs to look out for?
So the two guys that really you want to look out for, well, really there's three. And Primo Spears is the guy we already mentioned. He comes in off the bench. That guy is, I mean, I love watching him. He is really good. But he's actually the second leading scorer on the team, averaging 24.8 points per game. But Jameer Watkins, that's the guy. That is the one name to know. He leads the team in points, rebounds, and assists. And if if he's hot, for Florida State to win against a team like Virginia, I mean, Jameer Watkins has to be on fire that night. He is kind of the alpha dog of this team. So I would say Jameer Watkins is really the top level guy. Primo Spears is probably the second best player on the team off the bench. And then Jalen Worley. I think he had 23 or 24 against Louisville. So he is another guy that's really talented. But those are really the three that you need to know. Of course, Baba Miller, most people know him. And that was a lot of what happened last year, too, with the suspension that he wasn't able to play like half the season, which in the NIL era is kind of crazy how that even went down. But they have a couple of guys, but those are really the three names that I would watch for is Jameer Watkins, Jalen Worley, and then Primo Spears coming in off the bench.
Yeah, I was gonna say when Virginia, I always worry playing Florida State basketball because they are, as Jay said, they're always long and they're physical. And we've had trouble with Florida State through the years. In our best years, that team is athletics, giving us some of the most trouble of anybody in the conference. So it'll be interesting to see. Are you guys young or veteran?
They have a few veteran guys, but it is still a relatively young team. And they are long this year. They got a lot of length on this team. I will say that it is a typical Leonard Hamilton team, and they do get them at home. They play a little better at home, but at the same time, this is a team that when you like that leadership, even veteran or not, like it's you're just missing that piece, and it's just so inconsistent that you could see them sneaking up on a Virginia team. You could also see them, of course, losing because the way that they're just so inconsistent. But I do like that they're at home. At least they bounced back after the Louisville loss and they got a win, even if it was 1 point over Boston College. So at least they'll have a little bit of momentum and confidence coming into that. But, it's still like this is a team that the talent, they have talent. Like I don't want to completely poo on them or anything like that, but they have talent. It's just they can't consistently put it together. I mean, like if you watch the first half of that North Carolina game, they were giving it to North Carolina. And there was a couple guys one time in there where Devontae Green, I think his name is, I forget his first name. We got a couple of Greens, but he went chest to chest with a guy and was barking at him. And it was like, this is what we need. Play like this. And then, of course, the wheels came
relatable.
off. Right. And then so it came off the wheels came off in the second half. But yeah, I mean, they're good enough, I think, to beat most teams. It's just they consistently find ways to lose. So until they can find ways to win, it's just going to be kind of a crapshoot for this team.
Well, I think with Virginia this year, we've kind of had a tale of two seasons, and it's really tied to our post player, Jordan Minor. He's a transfer in, and he had a little bit of trouble picking up the pack line, so he wasn't playing hardly at all early. and we were really more just a finesse team without him in the lineup.
Right.
He's kind of given us a banger, but when he's not in the lineup, we struggle to rebound. We struggle against the length. And so since he's come into the starting lineup, we rebounded better. But if you guys get him in foul trouble and you have that length, that's the recipe. Because as you know, I'm sure with Virginia, we're going to shorten the game. We're going to play shot clock down to, under 5 seconds. We're going to try to make you work. We're going to try to limit your fast break points. And, you could easily see a game in the 50s. I know you liked watching last night, probably, if you got to see the Virginia-Miami game. We held them to 38, and they
That was
80.
awesome.
That's a classic minute game right there.
Right, but
definitely looking forward to it on Saturday.
Oh, I love watching Miami lose in just about everything. But I mean, you look at Florida State, and this is a team that gave up 101 points to Louisville. So now they will pressure you. I mean, they will get in your face. I think North Carolina had like 3 5-second violations just trying to inbound the ball because they will get up in your face. But at the same time, it's just like, if they can consistently put it together, that'll be great. But it's just, are they going to hit the free throws? That's what lost in the North Carolina game, is they just couldn't hit a free throw to save their life. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously the way Virginia plays the game. It will shorten the game, and I think we're giving up around 74 points a game right now. So the defense is real hit or miss. And they can shoot pretty good. But it's just, when you give up 100 points to Louisville, we were only their second ACC win.
Right.
You just never know what you're going to get from week to week with these guys. And that's what's so frustrating to watch, is because one minute you're like, okay, all right, I can get behind these guys. And then it's like, what are we doing here? So, yeah, I mean, if they can put it together, I think they have the talent to win games. It's just doing it on a consistent basis has been their biggest challenge this year. Right. It seems like they can't be good at everything in one night. They're either
kind of like my golf game.
Exactly. Like, if I didn't hit it in the trees and I could just get it on the green, we'd be okay. But it's like they can either hit the 3 one night, or they can't, or the free throw's there, or it's not. It's like they can never consistently put it together. And that's how you lose games to Lipscomb and Louisville. And so hopefully they can put it together. But, they do. I will say they do play hard, and they will pressure you. They will get in your face a little bit. But it's just, again, it's doing it on a consistent basis and doing it in big games. That's the other thing that they gotta learn how to win big games. And I don't really feel like they're there yet. They lost to Clemson, where they were fighting against them. But it's finding ways to win the big games, and they're still learning that. And so, we'll see. I mean, it's obviously going to be a challenge playing against a team as quality as Virginia. But, I'm glad we get them. I'm glad we get you guys at home. But, I don't. Again, I'll be interested. Saturday, they sold out the North Carolina game. They sold out, and they beat Miami. So, again, that just speaks to how inconsistent they are. But they usually have a good crowd on weekend games. Weekday games, not so much. Again, I hope the fan support is there after the last couple of weeks, because it does make a difference, obviously. But, it's probably not anything that you guys aren't used to playing in.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. You got anything else, Jay or Jack?
I think that might be about it. So, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Go ahead and tell the people, get a little plug, where, if they want some more FSU content, where can they go?
Yeah, you can check us out at plantthespear.com. We have a website, Plant the Spear on YouTube. We do, podcast, YouTube videos. Of course, on social media, we're really active on there. Florida State's a football school, like we were talking about earlier, and it's like so we are 99% on football. That is what really drives the numbers for us. So we are primarily football, but we touch on basketball as much as we can without, getting your blood pressure up too much. And then, of course, baseball and football, or softball season is getting ready to start off as well. And our softball team is really good. So, we're trying to get better about rounding out our coverage to all the sports and not just football. But, obviously, if you guys are interested, check us out over at plantthespear.com. That's kind of our hub for everything. You can find everything, links to everything there. So, and of course, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is always exciting. I love being a guest on everybody's show. It's so much easier than hosting, so it's always it's always a fun experience.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. It was a pleasure.
We appreciate
it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate it, and look forward to hopefully doing more shows in the future.
we'd like to thank our man Jesse Coger for joining us. That was a fantastic time talking some college hoops with him. Pretty much going to wrap it up for us tonight. So as always, be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all the stuff. On Twitter at TalkEVA Sports, and on Facebook at Cavalier Connection, and of course on YouTube and Spotify at Cavalier Connection Podcast. It's been a fun one. Jay, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just glad to be back. Survived the slopes, all 10 minutes that I lasted on the skis before I turned them back in, and got to watch 2 Cavalier wins since our last pod that I was a part of, and looking forward to Saturday night. Big game at FSU. Keep that momentum rolling.
Yeah, Dad.
All right. Yeah, I know you guys have heard of college football realignment. It's all over the country.
Yeah.
We already heard Florida State, they don't even know if they're going to be in the ACC any longer. Well, now get ready for college podcast realignment. So coming soon, there will be a new college sports community, and we are proud to announce that the Cavalier Connection will be the official UVA Virginia Cavalier representatives. Stay tuned. Tune in every week, because at some point we're going to be making this announcement. It's going to be big. So stay tuned, folks.
Other than that, go Hoos.
Go Hoos.
Go Hoos.